My name is Diana Sullivan, and I'm a 35-year-old ICU nurse from Seattle. What happened at my birthday party last month still sends shockwaves through my family, and honestly, the entire Seattle business community. My sister accidentally discovered my $8 million investment portfolio, then demanded I share it with the family right there, in front of 50 guests. But she didn't know about the legal document that would cost her $1 million contract and destroy everything she'd built. The way karma works sometimes. It's almost poetic. If you're watching this, please subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. I love connecting with people who understand what it's like to be underestimated. Let me take you back to that night when 10 years of keeping quiet finally paid off in the most unexpected way. The Fairmont Olympic Hotel's private dining room looked perfect that evening. Crystal chandeliers cast warm light over 50 guests. My colleagues from the hospital, old college friends, and of course, my family. I'd saved for months to throw this party, wanting to celebrate turning 35 in style, even if everyone thought I couldn't afford it. I was greeting my nursing supervisor when Rachel swept in, 40 minutes late as usual. My younger sister never just entered a room, she commanded it. Her designer heels clicked against the marble floor, her latest Hermes bag swinging from her arm. "Sorry, Diana," she said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "Client emergency. You know how it is when you're running $1 million company." She paused. "Oh wait, you wouldn't." Mom rushed over to embrace her. "Rachel, tell everyone about your new contract." And there it was. The familiar dance, Rachel launching into her success story while Mom beamed, occasionally glancing at me with that look. The one that said, "Why can't you be more like her?" "Three Fortune 500 clients this quarter alone," Rachel announced, pulling out her iPad. "Actually, I brought my presentation. Diana, you don't mind if I show a few slides, do you? Some potential investors are here tonight." I noticed Mr. Chen, one of Seattle's biggest venture capitalists, sitting at a corner table. He'd come as a plus one with my colleague, but Rachel had clearly spotted him too. "It's my birthday dinner, Rachel," I said quietly. "Oh, don't be selfish," Mom interjected. "Your sister's success is the family's success." My colleagues exchanged glances. Dr. Martinez, who'd worked with me through countless 18-hour shifts, shook her head slightly. But I just smiled and returned to my guests, even as I heard Rachel setting up her impromptu presentation. "Everyone, gather around." Mom's voice cut through the conversations. "Rachel has some exciting news to share." My guests politely turned their attention to my sister, who had connected her iPad to the room's display screen. Her company logo blazed across it. Sullivan Marketing Solutions, where success meets strategy. "As you all know," Mom began, even though most people here didn't know, "Rachel built her company from nothing, unlike some people who are content with simpler careers." Her eyes found me. "There's nothing wrong with being a nurse, Diana. Someone has to do it." The temperature in the room seemed to drop. Dr. Martinez stepped forward, but I touched her arm gently, shaking my head. Rachel clicked through her slides. "This quarter alone, we've secured partnerships worth 1.2 million. Next quarter, we're projecting double that." "Meanwhile," Mom added, "Diana's still living in that tiny apartment in Capitol Hill. Rachel, didn't you offer to help her find something more affordable? Maybe in the suburbs?" "Multiple times," Rachel said, not looking up from her screen. "But you know Diana, too proud to accept help." My friend Jennifer whispered, "Why do you let them do this?" Before I could answer, Rachel suddenly frowned at her iPad. "Diana, I need to pull up something from my cloud. Can I borrow your laptop? Mine's in the car." "Rachel, can this wait until— It'll just take a second. Mr. Chen," she called out to the investor, "you'll want to see these numbers." Mom was already retrieving my laptop bag from the coat check. "Here, darling, Diana won't mind." As Rachel opened my laptop, I felt my phone buzz. A notification from Vanguard. "Monthly portfolio summary now available." I quickly silenced it, but something cold settled in my stomach. Watching Rachel work the room, I couldn't help but remember all the labels they'd stuck on me over the years. Diana the dependable, the practical one, and Mom's favorite, our little helper. Just last Christmas, Rachel had laughed when she saw me reading an investment portfolio analysis. Since when do nurses understand the stock market? She'd said, plucking the papers from my hands. Stick to what you know, Di. What they didn't know was that I'd completed my MBA online 3 years ago, studying between night shifts. They didn't know about my meetings with Marcus, my financial advisor, every quarter for the past decade. They certainly didn't know about the healthcare startup I'd quietly invested in that went public last year. Diana's always been the stable one, Mom was telling a group of her friends. Not ambitious like Rachel, but stable. That's important too. Stable, one woman repeated. That's nice. She's been at the same hospital for 8 years, Mom continued. Same position, same everything. But that's Diana. No surprises. Dr. Martinez couldn't hold back anymore. Actually, Diana was offered the position of chief nursing officer last month. Mom blinked. She was? Diana, why didn't you tell us? Because you never asked, I thought. Because every conversation becomes about Rachel's achievements. I'm still considering it, I said simply. Rachel laughed from across the room. Chief nursing officer? That's cute. What's that pay, like 70,000? Try 150, Dr. Martinez shot back. Still, Rachel shrugged, typing on my laptop. It's not exactly executive level, is it? I watched her fingers fly across my keyboard, getting closer to my email icon with each movement. 10 years of careful planning, of keeping quiet while building something they couldn't even imagine. Sometimes the best empires are built in silence. Diana, sweetie, Mom called out. Rachel was just telling Mr. Chen about your little apartment. Rachel, tell him about that generous offer you made. Rachel looked up from my laptop, her perfectly manicured nails pausing over the keyboard. Oh, yes, I offered to let Diana move into one of my investment properties. The one in Renton. It's modest, but perfect for someone on a nurse's salary. Renton's an hour from the hospital, I pointed out. Sacrifices, Diana. Success requires sacrifices. Rachel's tone was patient, like explaining something to a child. I could even give you a family discount on rent. Maybe 800 instead of 1200? Several of my colleagues shifted uncomfortably. They knew I lived in a beautiful Capitol Hill apartment with a view of the Space Needle. Not exactly struggling. That's very generous, Mom beamed. Diana, you should be grateful your sister thinks of you. Actually, Rachel continued, I was thinking Diana could help out with my company, not in a decision-making capacity, obviously, but maybe data entry? It would give you some extra income. Data entry, I repeated. Don't look at it as beneath you. Look at it as learning from success. I thought of Grandma Grace then, her weathered hands holding mine during her final months. Patience, my dear Diana, she'd whispered. Let them show their true colors. The universe keeps perfect records. She'd left me more than money. She'd left me wisdom. That's a kind offer, Rachel, I said evenly. I'll think about it. Mom clasped her hands together. See? Family helping family. Though, Diana, you really should be more appreciative. Not everyone has a successful sister willing to extend such opportunities. Rachel had returned to my laptop, and I saw her cursor hovering dangerously close to my email folder. You know, Rachel said, her voice carrying across the room, I've been thinking. Diana, you're 35 now. No husband, no children, no real assets to speak of. Maybe it's time to be realistic about your future. The room went quiet. Even the waitstaff paused. What I'm proposing, she continued, is that you come work for me full-time. Not as an employee exactly. We couldn't afford that, but as an unpaid intern. You could learn the business and maybe in a few years. An unpaid intern? Jennifer, my best friend, couldn't contain herself. Diana has a master's degree. In nursing, Rachel dismissed. That doesn't translate to business. Mom nodded enthusiastically. Rachel's right. Diana, this is an opportunity. You could finally learn how to be successful. I felt the weight of 50 pairs of eyes on me. My colleagues who'd seen me manage critical care units. My friends who knew my worth. And my family, who'd never bothered to look past their assumptions. Dr. Martinez stepped forward. Mrs. Sullivan, are you aware that Diana innovations in our ICU have saved the hospital over $2 million in the last 3 years? That's nice, dear, Mom said absently. But it's not the same as building something of your own, is it? My phone buzzed again. This time, a text from Marcus, my financial advisor. Quarterly report ready. Portfolio up 12%. Congratulations on breaking 8M. I quickly turned my phone face down, but my hands were trembling slightly. Not from anger, but from the realization that if I stayed silent now, this would be my life forever, watching them diminish everything I'd accomplished while I smiled politely. My dignity was worth more than keeping the peace. Actually, Mom said, reaching into her purse, I've been meaning to ask. Diana, do you need to borrow money? I noticed you've been wearing the same dress to the last 3 family events. It's vintage Halston, Jennifer muttered. It costs more than... And those shoes, Mom continued. Rachel, don't you have some old ones Diana could have? Rachel glanced at my feet. Mom, she wears a different size. But Diana, if you need a loan, I could probably spare a few thousand. The interest would only be, say, 15%? 15%? Dr. Martinez looked appalled. Family discount, Rachel said sweetly. Banks would charge her 20, assuming she could even qualify. I noticed Mr. Chen, the venture capitalist, watching Rachel carefully now. Not with admiration, but with something else. Assessment, calculation. He was taking notes on his phone. I appreciate the concern, I said carefully, but I'm fine financially. Pride, Diana, Mom sighed dramatically. It's always been your downfall. There's no shame in accepting help from your successful sister. Successful, Rachel repeated, savoring the word. You know, Mr. Chen, this is exactly the kind of strategic thinking I bring to my clients, identifying weaknesses and converting them to opportunities. Mr. Chen's expression didn't change, but I saw him type something quickly. So Diana, Rachel pressed, what do you say? Ready to finally admit you need help? My hands clenched under the table. Around me, my real friends, the ones who'd seen me work 18-hour shifts, who'd watched me hold dying patients' hands, who knew my actual worth, were seething. But it was the memory of Grandma Grace that kept me steady. The truth always comes out, Diana. Just make sure you're ready when it does. I was ready. Can you imagine being humiliated like this at your own birthday? If you've ever been underestimated by family, hit that like button. And trust me, what happens next will make you believe in karma. Before we continue, what would you do in Diana's situation? Stay silent or reveal the truth? Comment below. Also, 87% of you watching aren't subscribed yet. It's free and really helps the channel. Now, let's see how Diana's secret gets exposed. The conversation spiraled faster now, each exchange sharper than the last. So you're really this poor? Rachel asked, fingers still dancing on my laptop keyboard. What are you trying to say, Rachel? I'm saying you should sell that apartment. Move somewhere realistic. Mom jumped in. Rachel's right. Be practical for once. I am practical, I said quietly. Practical? Rachel laughed. With a nurse's salary? I manage. Managing isn't thriving, Diana. And thriving isn't everything, Rachel. Spoken like someone who's never thrived. The room was electric with tension. Guests had stopped pretending not to listen. You know what? Rachel said, her voice rising. I'm trying to help you here. I didn't ask for help. Because you're too proud. Or maybe I don't need it. Everyone needs help, Diana. Not everyone needs your help. Rachel's face flushed. Mom gasped at my tone. Diana Sullivan, apologize to your sister right now. For what? Declining her generous offer to work for free? For being ungrateful? I'm perfectly grateful for the life I've built myself. Rachel snorted. What life? What have you built? Before I could answer, she accidentally clicked on my email icon. The screen flashed briefly before she could close it, but her eyes widened. Wait, what was... She clicked again, deliberately this time. The Vanguard email opened. The subject line was visible to her, though not the room. Portfolio summary, 8,234,567. Rachel's face went white, then red, then white again. This, this can't be real. What can't be real? Mom asked, moving closer. Rachel turned my laptop toward her, her hands shaking. Diana has $8 million. The words hung in the air like a bomb about to detonate. Every single person in the room turned to stare at me. $8 million? Rachel's scream could probably be heard in the lobby. She spun the laptop around, showing the email to everyone nearby. The Vanguard logo was unmistakable, the number clear as day, $8,234,567. The room erupted. That's impossible. Mom snatched the laptop, staring at the screen. This has to be fake. Diana, is this some kind of joke? It's not a joke, I said calmly. Rachel was frantically clicking through the email. There's transaction history going back years, dividend payments, stock sales. This is... She looked up at me, eyes wild. How do you have $8 million? That's my business. Your business? Mom's voice cracked. We're your family. How could you hide this from us? Dr. Martinez stepped forward, maybe because of exactly this reaction. Stay out of this, Rachel snapped. This is family business. The entire party had ground to a halt. 50 guests watched in stunned silence as my family imploded. Mr. Chen, I noticed, had his phone out, recording everything. All these years, Mom said, her voice trembling with rage. You let us think you were struggling. You let Rachel offer you charity. I never said I was struggling. You assumed. You lied. I stayed quiet. There's a difference. Rachel slammed the laptop shut. It doesn't matter how you justify it. You have $8 million, and we're family. You're sharing it. Excuse me? You heard me. Family shares. That's what family does. Since when? I asked. When Grandma was sick, where was this family? Mom's face darkened. Don't you dare bring her into this. Why not? She's the reason... I caught myself. She's the reason what? Rachel demanded. Diana, where did this money come from? The truth was clawing its way out, and I was done holding it back. I stood slowly, meeting the eyes of every family member in the room. The money is mine. Legally, ethically, completely mine. But how? Rachel demanded. Nurses don't make this kind of money. You're right. They don't. Then explain. Someone left it to me, I said simply. Someone who trusted me with their legacy. Mom's eyes narrowed. Who? Who would leave you millions and not tell us? Someone who had their reasons. That's not an answer. It's the only answer you're getting right now, Rachel laughed bitterly. Oh, please. You probably scammed some dying patient. Is that it? Convinced some lonely old person to... Careful, Rachel. My voice was steel. You're about to say something you can't take back. The truth? A lie that could cost you everything. Is that a threat? It's a fact. There are legal documents. Everything was done properly, with witnesses, lawyers, and very specific conditions. Mr. Chen spoke up from his corner. Ms. Sullivan, Diana, are you saying there are conditions attached to this inheritance? I nodded. Very specific ones. What kind of conditions? Mom demanded. The kind that determine who can and cannot benefit from it. Rachel's face was getting redder. You can't put conditions on family. We have rights. Actually, a voice said from the back of the room, that depends entirely on the documentation. Everyone turned. It was Harold Brennan, one of Seattle's most respected estate lawyers. He was here as a +1, but I'd noticed him listening carefully. Mr. Brennan, Rachel immediately shifted to her professional voice. Surely family members have some claim to... Not if the inheritance specifically excludes them, he said mildly. In fact, there are provisions that can permanently bar certain individuals if conditions are met. The room went very quiet. This is ridiculous, Rachel said, but her voice wavered. Diana, stop being dramatic and just tell us the truth. The truth? I looked around the room. The truth is that every dollar was left to me by someone who made their wishes crystal clear. Someone who spent months making sure the documentation was perfect. Who? Mom practically screamed. Harold Brennan cleared his throat. If I may, Diana, am I correct in assuming this benefactor included specific behavioral clauses? You are. Behavioral clauses? Rachel looked between us. What does that mean? It means, Brennan explained, that certain behaviors could trigger forfeiture provisions. For instance, attempting to claim money you're not entitled to. Rachel laughed nervously. That's absurd. You can't lose an inheritance you never had. No, Brennan agreed. But you can lose the possibility of ever receiving anything from that estate or its beneficiaries. Wait. Mom's face had gone pale. Are you saying, Diana, did Mother leave you this money? The room went silent. Even the waitstaff had stopped moving. Grandma Grace had nothing, Rachel protested. She lived in that tiny house, drove that ancient car. Appearances can be deceiving, I said quietly. You of all people should know that, Rachel. Isn't that what you tell your clients? Never judge a book by its cover? But she was just a retired teacher. A retired teacher who invested every spare penny for 50 years, who lived simply so she could leave something behind, who watched very carefully to see who actually cared about her versus who only cared about themselves. Mom sank into a chair. Mother left you $8 million? What Mother left me, I said carefully, came with very specific instructions, instructions I followed to the letter for 10 years. 10 years? Rachel's voice was faint. You've had this for 10 years? You're a liar! Rachel's professional composure finally cracked completely. You're a selfish, deceptive liar who let us think you were poor. Rachel, please, I started. No. Do you know how many times I felt sorry for you? How many times I offered to help you? And the whole time you were sitting on millions? She turned to the crowd, gesturing wildly. Everyone here needs to know what kind of person Diana Sullivan really is. She pretended to be struggling while hoarding millions. She watched her family worry about her and said nothing. I never asked you to worry about me. You let us! Mom stood up, her voice shaking. Diana, I'm your mother. How could you keep this from me? How could Mother keep this from me? The same way you kept your visits from her, I suppose. How dare you? How dare I what? Tell the truth? For 6 months, Grandma was in hospice. 6 months. How many times did you visit, Mom? Silence. Rachel, you live 20 minutes away. How many times? Rachel's face was crimson. I was building my business. Right. Your business. I looked around the room. Everyone here is so impressed with Rachel's success. But when our grandmother was dying, when she needed someone to hold her hand, where was that successful businesswoman? Don't you turn this around on me. I'm not turning anything around. I'm stating facts. For 6 months, I spent every free moment with Grandma. Every break between shifts, every day off. And during those 6 months, she made some decisions. Mr. Chen had stopped recording and was now taking detailed notes. Several other guests were openly filming. You manipulated her, Rachel accused. You turned her against us. I held her hand while she died. There's a difference. I want 25%, Rachel announced suddenly, for all the emotional damage you've caused, for the humiliation of offering charity to a secret millionaire. You want what? I couldn't help but laugh. 25%. That's $2 million. It's only fair considering what you put me through. Mom stood beside her. And I want 50%. I'm your mother. I raised you. Half of everything you have should be mine anyway. That's not how inheritance works, Harold Brennan interjected. Stay out of this, Mom snapped at him. This is between family. Dad, who had been silent until now, finally spoke. Patricia, maybe we should. Should what, Robert? Let our daughter keep secrets? Let her hoard money while we struggled? When did you struggle, Mom? I asked. Your mortgage is paid off. You take 2 vacations a year. What struggle? It's the principle. Exactly, I said. It is about principle. Rachel pulled out her phone. I'm calling my lawyer right now. We'll contest whatever bogus will Grandma left. No jury would side with you after hearing how you've deceived us. Go ahead, I said. Call your lawyer. You think I won't? I think you should. The room was electric. 50 people watched as Rachel started dialing, as Mom ranted about ungrateful daughters, as Dad tried unsuccessfully to calm everyone down. I pulled out my own phone and scrolled to a contact. Margaret Chen, estate attorney. What are you doing? Rachel demanded. What I should have done an hour ago. I hit dial and put it on speaker. Margaret, it's Diana Sullivan. Yes, I need you to come to the Fairmont Olympic now. Bring the documents, all of them. Rachel lowered her phone. What documents? The ones that are about to change everything. I looked at the room full of witnesses. You want the truth? You're about to get it. This is where everything changes. But before Diana reveals the truth, let me know. Do you think family is entitled to your success just because they're blood? The answer might surprise you. Also, if you're finding this story valuable, please share it with someone who needs to hear about setting boundaries. Remember to subscribe if you haven't. We post new stories every week about justice and standing up for yourself. Now, prepare yourself for the most satisfying reveal. 20 minutes later, Margaret Chen entered the dining room carrying a leather portfolio. She was exactly the kind of lawyer you'd want in your corner, sharp, professional, and intimidating in her perfectly tailored suit. Diana, she nodded, then surveyed the room. I see we have plenty of witnesses. Good. This is ridiculous, Rachel said, but her voice had lost its edge. Who are you? Margaret Chen, senior partner at Chen, Williams and Associates. I've been executing Grace Mitchell's estate for the past 10 years. Executing? Mom's voice cracked. What does that mean? Margaret opened her portfolio and pulled out a thick document. Mrs. Patricia Sullivan, Ms. Rachel Sullivan, would you please come forward? They exchanged glances but approached. This, Margaret held up the document, is the last will and testament of Grace Elizabeth Mitchell, executed January 15, 2015, 3 months before her death, witnessed by 3 parties and notarized by the state of Washington. She began reading. I, Grace Elizabeth Mitchell, being of sound mind and body, do hereby leave the entirety of my estate, valued at approximately $3 million in cash, securities, and property, to my granddaughter, Diana Marie Sullivan. 3 million? Rachel interrupted. But she has 8. Ms. Sullivan invested wisely, Margaret said coolly. The 3 million became 8 through her own efforts. Now may I continue? Silence. There is, however, a condition. Diana must keep this inheritance private for a period of 10 years. Furthermore, any family member who abandoned me during my final illness shall have no claim to any portion of this estate, now or in the future. Abandoned? Mom protested. We didn't abandon. Shall I read the visitor logs from Cascade Hospice? Margaret pulled out another document. 6 months of records. Diana Sullivan, 247 visits. Patricia Sullivan, 3 visits. Rachel Sullivan, 0 visits. The silence was deafening. Mom's face had gone from red to white. Rachel looked like she'd been slapped. But there's more, Margaret continued. Grace anticipated this moment. She knew that once the 10-year period ended, certain family members might feel entitled to Diana's inheritance. She pulled out another page. Therefore, she included what we call a forfeiture clause. Any family member who demands, claims, or attempts to obtain any portion of Diana's inheritance immediately and permanently forfeits any possibility of future gifts, bequests, or financial assistance from Diana. That's not enforceable, Rachel sputtered. Harold Brennan spoke up. Actually, It's completely enforceable. I've seen similar clauses upheld in court numerous times. Margaret nodded. By publicly demanding 25% of Diana's assets, you, Rachel Sullivan, have triggered this clause. By demanding 50%, you, Patricia Sullivan, have also triggered it. We didn't know, Mom cried. Ignorance of the terms doesn't negate them, Margaret said. However, Grace did leave you both something. She pulled out 2 envelopes. Letters, to be delivered only if you tried to claim Diana's inheritance. Mom snatched hers with shaking hands. As she read, tears began rolling down her cheeks. Rachel read hers and sank into a chair. Grandma knew, Rachel whispered. She knew we'd do this. Yes, I said quietly. She knew exactly who you were. She watched you ignore her calls, skip her birthdays, make excuses for why you couldn't visit, and she watched me show up every single day. But we're family, Mom said weakly. So was she. But you only remembered that when you thought there might be money involved. Mr. Chen stood up. Ms. Sullivan, Rachel, I think we need to discuss our pending contract. Rachel looked up, mascara streaking. Mr. Chen, this has nothing to do with... It has everything to do with it. Excuse me. He walked out. Margaret wasn't finished. She pulled out one final document. Diana, as per the completion of the 10-year term, you now have full discretion over your inheritance. However, we need to formally document tonight's events. She produced a tablet and began typing. On this date, September 20th, 2025, at approximately 8:47 p.m., both Patricia Sullivan and Rachel Sullivan publicly demanded a share of Diana Sullivan's lawful inheritance. Per the forfeiture clause in Grace Mitchell's will, they are now permanently barred from receiving any financial gifts, loans, or assistance from Diana Sullivan. This is insane! Rachel stood up. You can't just cut us off because of one emotional moment. It's not Diana cutting you off, Margaret clarified. It's you cutting yourselves off. Your grandmother anticipated this exact scenario. She wrote, and I quote, "Those who show their greed when they believe others have wealth reveal they never loved the person, only the possibility of profit." Harold Brennan stepped forward. If I may serve as an additional witness, I believe having an uninvolved estate attorney present strengthens the documentation. That would be excellent, Mr. Brennan, Margaret agreed. As they handled the paperwork, I watched my family crumble. Dad finally found his voice. Patricia, Rachel, you need to apologize. Now. Apologize? Rachel laughed bitterly. For what? Being lied to? For being exactly who Grandma knew you were, I said. She tested you, and you failed. Even now, you're not sorry for abandoning her. You're only sorry there are consequences. My phone buzzed. 3 text messages in quick succession. This is James Wu, pulling out of the Sullivan marketing deal. Hi, Diana. This is Sandra from Cascade Ventures. We need to discuss Rachel's contract. Ms. Sullivan, Robert Kim here. After tonight's display, we're reconsidering our partnership. Rachel's phone started ringing. She looked at the screen and went pale. It's my biggest client. As she stepped away to answer, we could all hear her sigh. What do you mean you're pulling out? Yes, but... The video? What video? She spun around, seeing at least a dozen phones pointed at her. You're all filming this? Mr. Chen reappeared in the doorway. Rachel, I've just spoken with my partners. We're withdrawing our $1.2 million investment offer. You can't! Rachel's voice broke. We have a verbal agreement. We had a preliminary discussion contingent on due diligence. What I've witnessed tonight raises serious concerns about your character and judgment. Attempting to strong-arm family members out of their legal assets in front of potential investors? He shook his head. That's not someone we can trust with our client's money. Rachel's phone rang again. And again. Each call was another client pulling out, another contract canceled, another partnership dissolved. This is your fault, she turned on me. You planned this. I plan to have a nice birthday dinner, I replied. You're the one who demanded to see my laptop. You're the one who announced my private finances to 50 people. You're the one who demanded money that wasn't yours. Margaret held up her tablet. The documentation is complete. Diana, you're now free to use your inheritance however you choose, without any obligation to anyone in this room. However, Harold Brennan added, looking at Mom and Rachel, if either of you attempts to contest this will or harass Diana for money, you could face serious legal consequences. Extortion is a crime. Mom collapsed into a chair. Mother really did this? She really chose Diana over her own daughter? She chose the person who chose her, I said. When she was scared, when she was in pain, when she needed someone to advocate for her with doctors. Where were you? Where was Rachel? You want to know why she left me everything? Because I was the only one who treated her like she mattered. 3 more potential investors who'd been at the party approached Rachel. We're out too. Can't be associated with this. Good luck, Ms. Sullivan. Rachel watched her empire crumble in real time, her phone lighting up with cancellations, her reputation destroyed in a single evening. The woman who'd walked in boasting about million-dollar deals was watching millions slip through her fingers. The internet is forever, Rachel, someone said, holding up their phone. This is already trending on LinkedIn. #entitled sister Nat instant karma. #grandma knew the tags were already spreading. By the next morning, the video had exploded across social media. Entitled sister demands share of inheritance at birthday party, gets instant karma, had 3 million views on TikTok. LinkedIn was worse. The professional community was tearing Rachel apart. This is the kind of person running Sullivan Marketing Solutions? Imagine treating your own sister like this. The grandmother knew exactly what she was doing. Rachel called me 17 times that day. I didn't answer. Mom sent text after text. Diana, please, we need to talk. Your sister's business is ruined. How can you let this happen to family? But it was Dad who surprised me. He came to my apartment alone that evening. I'm sorry, Diana, he said simply. I should have stood up for you years ago. I should have visited Grace. I should have been a better father. Dad, no. Let me finish. Your mother and sister, they've always been like this. Status-obsessed, money-hungry. But I was a coward. I let them treat you poorly because it was easier than fighting. Your grandmother saw that. That's why I'm not in the will either, isn't it? I nodded. But she didn't ban you from future help. Just them. He smiled sadly. I don't want your money, Diana. I want my daughter back, the one I should have protected. Meanwhile, Rachel's company imploded. 3 major clients pulled out within 48 hours. Her employees started resigning, not wanting to be associated with the viral video. By the end of the week, Sullivan Marketing Solutions had lost 40% of its revenue. Mom faced her own social exile. Her country club friends suddenly had scheduling conflicts. Her book club suggested she take a break. The charity board she sat on requested her resignation. Everyone thinks I'm a monster, she sobbed to Dad. You acted like one, he replied, showing more backbone than he had in 30 years. The irony wasn't lost on me. They'd spent so many years looking down on me, the simple nurse, only to discover I'd been the wealthy one all along, and their greed had cost them everything. 3 days after the party, I was called into the CEO's office at the hospital. My stomach dropped. Had the viral video affected my job too? Dr. Patricia Hoffman, our CEO, was sitting behind her desk with an unreadable expression. Diana, please sit. Dr. Hoffman, if this is about the video, it is. She pulled out her phone and showed me the screen. 3 million views on this platform alone. You're famous. I never meant for... Diana, she smiled. I was at your party, remember? I saw everything. And I have to say, the way you handled that situation, with grace, composure, and strategic thinking, was remarkable. Thank you. I'm promoting you to Chief Nursing Officer, effective immediately. The board unanimously agreed. Anyone who can manage that level of family drama while maintaining professional composure can certainly handle hospital politics. I thank you. I accept. There's more. We want you to establish the Grace Mitchell Nursing Scholarship Fund. The hospital will match your initial contribution up to $500,000. My eyes filled with tears. She would have loved that. I think she would have loved seeing you stand up for yourself more, Dr. Hoffman said gently. By the way, several of our board members are very interested in your investment strategies. Dr. Martinez tells me you turned 3 million into 8. Just careful investing, index funds, some biotech, a healthcare startup that went public. Would you consider teaching a financial literacy seminar for our staff? I'd be honored. As I left her office, my phone buzzed with an email from an unexpected source. 3 ICU nurses from different hospitals. Dear Diana, we saw your story and it inspired us. We're also dealing with family members who don't respect our careers. Would you consider starting a support group for healthcare workers facing similar situations? That's how Nurses Building Wealth was born, a monthly meetup that grew into a nationwide network within 6 months. We share investment strategies, boundary setting techniques, and support each other in valuing ourselves properly. Rachel, meanwhile, had to close her office in downtown Seattle and work from her apartment. The contrast wasn't lost on anyone. 6 months later, I established what I call the Sullivan Family Protocols, clear boundaries that would govern any future interactions with my family. First, I didn't block them. That would have been petty. Instead, I set clear communication guidelines. They could email me once a month, call only for emergencies, and we would meet in public places only, during major holidays. Second, no financial discussions. Any mention of money, loans, investments, or help would result in immediate end of contact for 3 months. Third, all family events would have security present. I hired a discreet service that specialized in family harmony management. Basically, professional witnesses who ensured no drama occurred. The first test came at Thanksgiving. Mom and Rachel arrived at the restaurant I'd chosen, public, neutral, with multiple exits. Rachel looked exhausted. Her designer clothes had been replaced with off-the-rack items. Mom had aged 5 years and 6 months. Thank you for agreeing to see us, Mom said quietly. It's Thanksgiving. Family is family, even with boundaries. Rachel couldn't meet my eyes. Diana, my company is gone. Everything I built, destroyed because of one night. No, Rachel, it was destroyed because of who you revealed yourself to be. The night was just when everyone else saw it. That's harsh, Mom said. That's honest. Something this family has never been good at. Dad, who'd been meeting me for coffee weekly, squeezed my hand under the table. Our relationship had flourished once he'd stood up to Mom and Rachel. I've started over, Rachel said quietly. I'm working at a nonprofit now, helping small businesses with free marketing advice. That's good, Rachel. Grandma would approve of service over profit. The meal continued without drama. They'd learned that my boundaries weren't negotiable. When Mom started to say something about my responsibility to family, Dad shut her down immediately. Patricia, Diana owes us nothing. We owe her apologies, daily, forever. As we left, Rachel stopped me. The scholarship fund you started? In Grandma's name? I donated what I could. $50. I know it's nothing compared to... It's not about the amount, Rachel. It's about the gesture. Grandma would have appreciated that. For the first time in years, my sister genuinely smiled. Looking back now, a year after that explosive birthday party, I realize Grandma Grace orchestrated all of this perfectly. She knew that money doesn't change people. It reveals them. And she gave me the tools to protect myself when that revelation came. The 8 million? It's grown to 12 now, through careful investing and the connections I made after going viral. Turns out, a lot of wealthy people respect someone who stands their ground against entitled family members. Rachel's rebuilding her life, slowly and humbly. She'll never reach the heights she once did, The internet has a long memory, but she's becoming a better person. She volunteers at the hospice where Grandma died, reading to patients who have no visitors. I think that's her way of apologizing to Grandma. Mom still struggles with the reality that her mother chose me over her. But she's in therapy now, working through her issues with money, status, and control. Dad told me she cried for 3 hours after reading Grandma's letter again, finally understanding what she'd lost by choosing image over relationships. As for me, I'm still a nurse. Yes, I could retire, live off my investments, travel the world, but I love what I do. I love being there for people in their most vulnerable moments. Grandma knew that about me. It's why she trusted me with her legacy. The Grace Mitchell Nursing Scholarship has sent 37 nurses to advanced training programs. The Nurses Building Wealth Network has over 10,000 members nationwide. My story, as painful as it was to live through, has helped thousands of people find the courage to set boundaries with toxic family members. Last week, I visited Grandma's grave. I brought her favorite flowers, yellow roses, and told her everything. You knew, didn't you? I whispered to her headstone. You knew exactly how this would play out. I could almost hear her voice. Money is just a tool, Diana. What matters is who holds it and what they do with it. She was right. She always was. Sometimes the best inheritance isn't money. It's the wisdom to know who deserves to be in your life and the courage to remove those who don't. Even if they're family. Especially if they're family. That email I mentioned? It was from 3 other nurses who saw the video and asked for mentorship in financial planning. We now meet monthly. If you've made it this far, you're probably someone who values both justice and boundaries. What would you have done differently in my situation? Comment below. I read everything. If this story resonated with you, please share it with someone who needs to hear that it's okay to protect what you've earned. Subscribe for more stories about standing your ground with grace. Remember, your success doesn't require their approval.